Right. Now that we have looked at the liquid basics and kind of went through what to expect with liquid, and looked through a lot of the tags that are provided to you by Shopify for using liquid, let's actually dive into some code and actually try to use liquid. So we have our store here. We can go into edit code as usual. And just a quick hint, if you press this button, you will get rid of the sidebar, which gives you more real estate on your screen to work with. And let's take a look. Why don't we let's get it customized here and pick a section that we want to work with. Okay, so we kind of already have a gallery created here, but let's create something from scratch, and we will use we'll use basically the liquid basics that we just looked over, and kind of how we can actually implement that into the code. So why don't we create a new section? So let's call this section liquid basics, and we don't need to put .liquid because Shopify automatically includes that when you create a new section. But when you are using theme kit, you have to put everything because Shopify is not there to do that for you. So we have our liquid basics, and right off the bat we are presented with our schema, our style sheets, and our JavaScript that we can insert. I personally don't like using these tags. I like using just the regular HTML tags. So let's start with some basics. So one of the more advanced techniques that I really want to dive into right now is using the pre-made theme kind of outlines that they give for any section. So if we go into our inspect, right click and inspect, we can check out what the sections are really made of. What does this theme provide you with? So you can see here that by using the class name page width, we're automatically given a padding left of 55, a padding right of 55, maximum width, and margin. So that becomes very useful when you're working with creating a lot of custom sections, because you can just put in these class names and everything is done for you. For example, over here with an unordered list, we have class name grid, grid dash dash uniform, and grid dash dash view items. So each one of those does something for our code. So for example, if we click on this, we can see that grid dash dash view items actually gives us an overflow of auto and margin bottom of negative 35 pixels. The ones that I really like using is like the page width, because it basically gives you a uniform page width that you can just use for any section that you want. And also what's super useful about this is that it's also optimized for mobile already from the box, right? So for example, this section, let's use this as an example. We have page width, and then we go into mobile view, and we can see that page width now changes. So we can see that they actually included a media query for maximum width of 749. So everything below the tablet view, we get a padding left of 22 and padding right of 22, whereas before it was I believe 55, right? So if you go here, yep, it changes to 55. So it's super useful because you don't have to write a lot of code, and as a developer, you want to really use the dry principle, which is do not repeat yourself. So if someone has already written this stuff for you, you do not want to be writing it again because you're just going to be wasting your time. So I really recommend before you start using a theme, you can actually go into the assets folder and go into theme.scss, and you can actually find where all of this is labeled. So you can see that they pre-made some variables for you that you can use. And this is stuff that you would mostly use in your CSS inside of this file. But you can basically, instead of writing 750, you can write grid medium, grid large, widescreen. And every theme kind of has it in different places. So you really have to look around and get to know your theme.scss file if you want to be familiar with which sections to use. But another way to really quickly get yourself familiar with the theme is to do what we just did over here and just inspect the page and see how everything is laid out for you. So let's take a look at another section. So for example, this image with text, right? So we have our image with text here. And again, we can see that they use the class name of page width. So page width gives you 55 pixels, right? And then we have a feature row. So what feature row does is it gives you a width of 100 and is display flex and align item center, right? So instead of having to write all of those CSS properties, what you can do is just include this class name and you get all of those properties right away. And then we have feature row item. Feature row item gives us a flex of 50%, and we can see over here when you just type in flex, you get all of these properties at once. So flex grow of 0, flex shrink of 1, and then flex basis of 50%. And then this one also has a class name of feature row item feature row. So this is super useful again because you can include multiple class names. So it gets everything that was included here, but also we get the feature row text left, or whatever else it says. And then we have the RTE. I don't remember what RTE stands for, but that also has properties like margin bottom. Might just remove the margins. Yeah, I think RTE actually just removes the margins because this P tag, it has a margin of bottom, right? But then the RTE, gosh, yeah, I do not remember off the top of my head what RTE is. But again, you don't have to know what it stands for to be able to use it. Okay, so let's actually write some code. So we looked at all that. So what we can do here is div class equals, and then we can take a look at what they used. Let's follow this one. So okay, so yeah, so I have a little bit of a smaller screen there. So page width. So class of page width, and we can just actually double click here and copy it. Put it in here. So again, this Shopify code editor is not the greatest in terms of formatting things, but it gets the job done. And a lot of times when I'm working on smaller projects, or just I want to change stuff around, it doesn't always make sense to connect things to ThemeKit. So you kind of have to just get used to working with the Shopify code editor. And then yeah, so let's give actually this whole thing. So div class section header text center. Let me move this one over here. Inside of here, we'll do div class this one, And let's see how they structured it. So, you know, like working with each theme, you kind of just want to see how they structure things so that you're making it with the style of that theme. And that's really important in terms of keeping the theme easy to edit for the future. So liquid basics, and instead of actually, we'll change this part, and then we'll include another one. So let's see how what they called this one. So I wanna try to use the for loop here. So let's create a UL. And inside of those UL, we will create some list items. And you're going to see how all of this comes together pretty nicely. If I'm able to do it, that is. No pressure on me. But let's see. So inside of that, we'll have a grid view item card. We'll literally just copy this whole thing right here. Just to show you if you want to create something custom, but then also you don't want to write a lot of code. And honestly, you don't even need to know that much coding for this, right? Like you're just looking at whatever's built and just changing it up. That's why Shopify is such a wonderful platform to use, is like you don't need to know a whole lot of anything really to be able to use it. What else? What should we put in here? Let's put an image in here. Put an image, and we won't follow, you know, the S, and then we'll give it a source after. I'll talk about that in a second. I just want to give you an idea of how to work with things. Right, so they're burying the image like far inside. And a lot of times the Shopify themes, they're gonna do some CSS black magic, right? Like you don't need to actually follow a lot of the CSS that they're doing. A lot of this stuff can be done in a much easier way. They're using a lot of data tags, which is something that's pretty new to CSS, and it's used in kind of a more advanced level. And it's the way that basically it's used in Shopify and a lot of themes. But you'll definitely learn how to use this once you start digging in more into the code. Okay, so we created that. So let's start with the schema. Let's get the schema going. So the schema, and we're gonna dive into this a little bit deeper in the next few lectures, but just to give you a brief overview for this example, is that schema is what gets displayed in the customizer. So schema is anything that's in here, and we're basically building these fields over here very easily using the schema. So for example, this is a text area, this is an image picker, this is an image alignment, and we can go here, Shopify schema. Let's see, configure schema settings. No, schema section maybe. Yeah. Okay. So what we have inside of the schema is, I feel like this isn't it either. This kind of talks about the structure of schema, but I want to try to find the actual schema objects that we use. Maybe it's content schema actually. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So these are the options that we have for the schema. We have the rich text. We have the image picker, the video URL, product collection. This isn't all of them either. Restrictions on additional section schema. I remember seeing a page where it kind of had all of them. And kind of this is what programming is all about, right? Just a lot of times looking through the docs. Schema object configure the block object. So the block object is something we're gonna use in a bit. All right, so this list gives us a pretty good idea of what you can use inside of your schema. So we have the rich text, we have the image, the product, the collection. So basically with something like the product, you're basically selecting, you're giving the user the ability to select the product that they want to go in there. And same thing for collection, articles, menu. This is what they use in the navigation menu, HTML, and custom. Custom, you're almost never going to use unless you're doing something very, very custom. But I have never really come across a use case where I would use a custom schema type. But anyways, let's continue. So let's give this section a name of liquid basics example. And then the settings are the settings for before the blocks. So let me show you an example. Let's see. Okay, over here. So this is the main settings of your sections, and then we're going to be creating blocks which are going to go in here. So we can create more settings inside of the whole block, right? So it's settings inside of settings. And let's go. So settings, we'll give this type of text. Let's do this one first, right? We want to give it a header. And we'll name this title. So another neat trick, ID. Another neat trick is that you see how it says image slide here. If we want to, like, if we want something custom to appear here, like example, why? So they must have not actually done this properly, which is funny. So I'll show you an example that I'm creating here. So anything that you're actually naming title will be the title of that whole section, right? So if they did it properly, for example, yeah, that's very interesting. So like this is another section that I created. So if I do gallery example, you can see that it's actually changing over here as well. And that's very useful, and that's very useful for the client as well, because they can easily find the section that they're looking for. But let's give it a title. And the next thing we're gonna need is a label. Oops. So a label is basically what is going to be shown to the client. So in case of this is a label, 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 right? So anything that's telling the client what they want to input there. And we'll just put title. And we can give it a default value. Basics example. And I think that's it for that. So let's go ahead right away and use this, right? So whenever you're including parts of liquid, you're always using the double mustache, what I call it sometimes. And so we basically have to say that where are we getting the schema from? We're getting the schema from our section, and then we go into the settings, and then that it's called title. That's it. Section, that's settings, that title. So we're looking at the section, and inside of that section, we're trying to find the settings. So the section is the whole object, and then the title. And now let's include some blocks. So blocks also needs to go into double quotes, open the array, and let's give this block. So first of all, we need an object inside that block. And let's give this block, first of all, a type, because when you're going in here, it has to have a type. And we'll give this, it doesn't really actually matter what you call it. Let's see what I called it over here, just out of curiosity. I don't even think it's gonna appear anywhere. Content. Yeah, I don't think even after you change it, I don't think that the type even appears. And then let's give it a name. And the name for that block will be custom blocks. And then let's give our settings for the blocks. And again, you see how kind of annoying the formatting is, but you know, something you gotta get used to. So let's give this block a title, and we can give it a type, text again. And again, you can choose any one you want. I'm just going with like text, probably text and image picker, and rich text is something that you're going to be using most of the time. Let's actually give this one a rich text so I can show what that is. And it needs an ID. And we'll give it an ID of block text. And then the label. And the label will say block text. And we won't give it a default just yet. And let's give this a type of image picker, because we already have we created an image tag over here, and ID will be here, image. You don't want to make it capital, and then we'll put in here picken image. All right, so we just created. Let's kind of have a quick overview of what we just did. So we created HTML, and then we're right now creating schema, which is going to go into the HTML to make it kind of more dynamic and to allow your client to choose the title and the amount of blocks that they want very easily. And this is kind of called injecting liquid into the HTML. So, I think that's a very good analogy because that's literally what we're doing. We're kind of injecting liquid tags into various parts here. Okay, we got that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look over is these are the for loop. So the way we use a for loop is we need liquid tags. So whenever you're doing any kind of logic, you're always doing it inside of these percent tags instead of the double mustaches. And we have a for here, and we have an end for. So this is an opening tag, this is a closing tag in liquid. Super easy. And we'll name it block, and you can name this anything. So for block in section.blocks, right? So we're basically saying that each one of these is going to be called block, and it's inside of blocks, which is the array that contains. So if you've ever programmed in any other language, for example, JavaScript has a map or for each. And in a map and a for each, you're giving each item, each object in the array a specific name. Most commonly, it's called item. So you're saying basically item in this array, and then you're looping over it. So this is exactly what we're doing here as well. And inside of here, we want to put now over here we put section.settings.title. Now we want to put block.settings dot block text, or sorry, dot, and this one needs to be dot image. And then okay, one more thing. After you include an image, you have to say what you want from that image, because Shopify by default doesn't know what you want to do with that image. So you got to do image URL. You got to use a filter, because you're kind of extracting something from that image object, which contains a lot of things. It contains the image alt, right? So if you have like in your product, you have images, and then you want to put something to improve your SEO, like an image alt tag, or alt variable. I forgot what it's called, but you would use that, right? And you can do the same thing. You can use like image, but for now we're gonna go with image URL, and then we want to give it a master, and let's give it a style just so that our image doesn't come out a lot, doesn't come out too much. We'll give it a max width of 200 pixels, and this is kind of inline styling. You'll see this a lot in Shopify, just because some sections have their own styling, and you can just put it over there. And then let's give it a p tag, and our p tag will contain the block.settings block text. So one thing that I'm doing right now, I'm kind of breaking my own rules, is exactly that. You always want to be testing what you're making, because Shopify doesn't show you where you made a mistake. So let's try to find it now, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. Let's see, type ID label. Okay, that seems fine. We got a closing tag for that. Oh, there we go. So it's this one comma that we were missing, and it was throwing the whole thing off, and it wasn't allowing us to save it. So you can see this much easier when you're using ThemeKit, but when you're editing in this browser, you have to be super careful, and you want to be testing it all the time. Let's press save again. Okay, it seems like we're missing something else. So I found where the mistake was. Each array needs to contain objects. Sorry, that's my dog there. Each array needs to have an object. So you can't just put the type, or you can't just put the schema that and not have it in an object. So, okay, so we created that. And I think we should be ready to test. So let's reload our customizer. And we're going to try to find our section. Custom. Liquid basics example. Okay, so another thing we're missing is that if we wanted to appear in our add sections over here at the bottom, we got to actually give it a preset. So what a preset is, it actually allows us to see it there. So after our blocks, we'll give it a presets. And again, we're gonna have an object inside of here. Let's not forget it this time. And we have to basically replicate the name that's up top over here. And we got to give it a category. So the category is the category it's going to appear under over here. So these are the category titles. And we'll put it under images. And that's it. You can also preset the amount of blocks and stuff like that, but I don't want to do that right now. So let's do that. Refresh our customizer again. And images. That's exactly what we called it. So we already have image. We could have put it in this category, but I call it images, and it's over here. And as you can see, the title is preset because that's what we preset it over here and over here. Oh no, so sorry, this one is not for that, but this one is. Oh, sorry, yeah, we're looking at this. So the default title is liquid basic. I called 3 different things. Liquid basic example. And let's give it a block now. So we can choose an image. Choose this guy. And then we'll just copy some text. It doesn't matter. And we can see the text appears there. So the reason blocks are so wonderful is you can just create more and more blocks. Right? We're literally creating this exact same thing here. All right, and we can create another one. No problem. No problemo. Let's choose this guy over here. Oh, why is he not appearing? Oh, there we go. And that's great, right? Because we only wrote this section once, and we were able to loop over it just like you would in React or any other framework, Angular. And I think it's a lot easier here than in React and Angular because you don't have to learn a new framework, you don't have to learn anything new. You're just literally looping over some HTML. Let's actually do another one, and this we'll show another very popular one, and that's an if statement. And if, and then we'll say if section dot. This one won't make any sense, but it'll give you an idea of what of what is possible. So we'll say if a title exists, then show this. So if we delete this title, everything should disappear. And all right, we can say does not equals blank. Oh, well, it did disappear. Just not when we wanted it to. Or no, it didn't. But now it should. And there we go. It disappeared. And then if we add a title again, they should all appear. Okay, so again, Liquid is super easy to use. The only thing that you need to kind of master Liquid is to actually get some time with it, get some practice with Liquid and using all these different things. I mean, I can be showing you all day all these little tags that you can be using in Liquid, but you won't really understand or even remember them until you actually need to use them. So go out there, make some projects, get some clients, and practice Liquid. I'll see you in the next sections. We're going to be doing very similar things, but in Theme Kit and looking at over these things in more detail. We're going to be going over blocks again. We're going to be going over sections and creating new sections. So I just did a super quick overview over here. I know it wasn't that quick, but we're gonna really hammer this down in the next few sections. See you there.